Vivo, it's a brand that I've been following for some time that I really do like what I'm seeing when it comes to their camera performance. And I would rate them as definitely being in the top 3. A recent camera comparison that I've posted in the channel showed that it pretty much has the best when it comes to low light camera performance from its main camera, which is the same as last year's. It is the IMX989, so it's a 1-inch type sensor. We've got a 50 megapixel ultra wide with the X100 Pro and a 4.3 times periscopic zoom camera. Now all 3 of those rear cameras, they are covered with the T-Star coating from Zeiss. So yes, they're continuing that partnership. Again, is really good to see. We've got a large 5,400 milliamp hour battery, 120 watt chargers included in the box, and our screen, well, it's the same as last year. We have a 6.78 inch screen here, but it now has 3000 nits peak brightness and the refresh rate 120 Hz with this model and a pulse width modulation frequency of 2160 Hz. The front-facing camera, that one is 32 megapixels. So this is what Vivo does include with the X100 Pro. We have their flash charger, that's 120 watts, Type-C to Type-C cable, and then you will find this, which does have our SIM tray tool, and if you open it up, you'll find then a black TPU case, which is rather nice, covers the camera bump, and there's a little bit of paperwork there inside. The X100 Pro does have quite a slippery back to it with this glass. Now, it's got this, what is like a shimmer effect to it, like a frosted style to the glass, which does look really good, resists fingerprints, but it makes it just so much more slippery because of that, especially in the cold winter now. Handling this phone, I have almost dropped it a couple of times. It's that slippery, so I recommend just slapping that case on it straight away. Dual tone LED flash, we have the 350 megapixel cameras here on the back. We've got our periscopic one, which is this one right here, 4.3 times optical, and ultra wide, which is only 15 millimeters, which is a bit odd to me. I thought they would at least go with, say, 13 there. So it's not as wide as it could be. Laser assist focus, and then our 1-inch sensor, which is the other 50 megapixel camera, the main one there. Now it's got optical image stabilization. The ultra wide does have also autofocus to it, and we've got optical image stabilization with the periscopic camera, and you see the Zeiss branding there. They're still using that T-Star coating, which is really good to see. I love this partnership that it is continuing because it does make a difference cutting down on the lens flare and the reflections on these lenses. The phone is 9.1 millimeters. We've got a metal frame around the outside, antenna lines. These are metal volume up and down and power on button. And it is 225 grams, so it's not exactly a lightweight phone. You can see the camera module does stick out a bit there. Of course, that 9.1 millimeters is measuring the side here, not where those camera modules are. That brings it up then to almost 14 millimeters. Along the top, there is some glass here. We've got an IR transmitter. Sorry, this is plastic, and it does say professional photography there. Microphone, secondary one. A loudspeaker here on the bottom. Now, this here does support this Type-C, does support video out, and it is USB 3.1 speeds, which is great to see that. And the SIM tray, well, it's only taking just 2 nano SIMs there, so we do not here have the micro SD card support or 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which is kind of standard now. Then on the left side, well, there's absolutely nothing, just those antenna lines here. Build quality does feel really good. So the fingerprint reader is located quite low right there. The power button, I can get to that easily with my thumb, so that's a great location. But that fingerprint reader, I really wish it was about there. I don't know why brands do this, maybe because there's some components in the way and it's just not possible. But there are a few brands out there that do have it right about there, making it a little bit more comfortable. Now, it is working for me 10 out of 10 times here. This fingerprint reader is excellent. I have no complaints with it. Front-facing cutout notch here camera is 32 megapixels, does not support 4K video, 1080p. Later on I'll give you some samples. It's very good 1080p video. It's got electronic image stabilization, but it would be nice to have 4K considering this is a flagship, of course. Now the screen, it does have very good palm rejection. You can see that my thumb there is slightly touching the screen, but it's ignoring that, which is good. It's detected that while I'm holding the phone, so that's not a problem for it. Now the screen has a really good pulse width modulation refresh rate. Now, this is 2160 Hz. I do not see any flicker out of the screen at all. And we've got another one of those outrageous claims of the brightness being 3000 nits, which I'm just not able to measure at all. The peak brightness that I get is 1372 nits, and that is me shining a bright light on it and just trying to get it as bright as possible, the screen, and that's the only way to do it. But it is a great looking panel. I really do like it. I'm fond of it, and I'll show you the settings we do get. So if you go along here and you go into the display settings, you'll see that we can control, okay, the display size and font. That's all pretty standard. Gestures are working really good. Touch response is excellent. I've not had a problem. You've got your screen resolution, which you can put it on to the highest or lower it down to what is basically full HD plus. So the resolution's a little odd here. We've got that 2800 by 1260 resolution, but I keep it on the top spec one, and I also do force it, as you would have seen. Oh, it's on smart switch. I just changed that with my last cut, but I normally always have it on high here, forcing it to 120. I just recently changed that with the last take that I did. So overall, a very good display. I have no complaints about it. It looks really good. And how does it fare in direct sunlight? Well, still not measuring that 3000 nits, but it is very good. You can see, you can make out that screen, use it in direct sunlight. So that checks out, and absolutely no flicker, which is what I love about it. So this being the global version here, I have FunTouch OS, and this is version 14 of it, based off Android 14. And my whole time using it and testing this phone for a week now, I've not encountered any bugs. There has been already a couple of firmware updates, and that is good to see that they're pushing them out. Performance is very good. I do not see any animation lag, stutter, any problems. You don't really notice that LTPO display either, changing from the 1 Hz refresh rate it can go down to with static images right up to the 120 frames per second for the UI. Overall performance, very good. Now, I won't go into the finer details of the UI. I don't do that because most of us out there watching these videos are already Android users. We kind of know how things work here, and there's just their own little tweaks and things, of course, to the UI, but it is good. There is not anything in here that I do find annoying. You don't see anything in Chinese, this of course being the global ROM. And I've got 5G support, LTE band 20 is there, all of that good stuff there. So what about bloatware? Well, this is really good for Vivo. You don't get a lot of bloat, hardly any at all. You get what I would call more useful kind of applications. So I could consider that, oh yeah, Google Fit, that's kind of bloatware. It shouldn't be pre-installed. But no, they're not like other brands like Xiaomi, for example, that just puts a huge amount of bloatware on there. So it's good to see from them. Now, performance here, I've got 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of that UFS 4.0 storage, and of course the Dimensity 9300 that I mentioned in the intro. Very good chip. It is on par, equal to that of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. It really is. And the performance of it I found to be excellent. It's a great chipset here, and it's using all big cores now. They've made a bit of a change compared to the previous generation of it with the 9200. The internal storage speeds are phenomenal. Look at this. We're getting 4,000 sequential reads and just over 3,500 sequential writes there. And those random access speeds, wow. I mean, look at that. We're nearing up to almost 2,000 megabytes per second for reads and writes over 1,000. So this is not going to bottleneck anything. Everything's just so fast when you use this phone. It's incredible, the speed of it. It really is a good chipset. However, just like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it does throttle a lot. Performance will drop, you can see, from nearing 5,000 now to, wow, when you're at the lowest score, they're just over 2,500. This means the stability, which is our throttling, basically, it's gone down quite a bit, almost half the performance from when you start out. You can see it continually drops off. Now, I see the same thing with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 if it's not passively cooled. The only phone that I've seen maintain the performance is the Red Magic 9 Pro. That's fan cooled, and that can hold the performance continually. These are hot chipsets, both the Dimensity 9300 and that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. You can see that the temperatures go from 29 degrees from that to 47. So that's quite an increase, and you do feel the frame around the outside get quite hot. I've measured with my thermal probe around 48, 49 degrees at times when you really do push it. So that's just one area that I wish was a little bit better, the throttling in it. Now, it does have a Widevine level 1 cert, so Netflix, Amazon Prime Video is going to be in full HD. We do have a SafetyNet Pass too, so your banking applications are going to work. There's NFC on board with this, of course. and Camera2 API level 3 support. So if you wanted to try out open camera Gcam ports, then you're able to do so with that. Battery life, well, 5,400 milliamp hour battery does go for in this fixed synthetic benchmark battery life test that just loops until 20%. All at the same fixed brightness. You can compare this result to all my other phone reviews, even tablet reviews. 12 hours and 28 minutes is very good. And in real world use, well, you're looking about 8.5 hours, and this is having it on the dynamic refresh rate. So not a bad result at all. I find the battery life to be better than expected with the X100 Pro. Charge time, this is great. It's 27 minutes with the 120 watt charging to go from 3% to, well, it states 99, but it was at 100%, you can see here. So 27 minutes only. Very good. Yes, the charger gets a little warm and the phone does get a little warm too, which is normal. And onto the audio quality. So the voice calls do sound fine. We do have noise cancellation with the voice calls too. There's that microphone at the top. There's also one on the back, but that's used more when you're using the cameras there, I believe, and not factored in with the voice calls. Haptics does feel good. It's a nice little pulse to it. It's not the best I've felt, but it's not the worst. I would rate it as just, well, average, above average. And we have some loudspeakers. So the earpiece and down below here are our loudspeakers, so dual loudspeakers. And I'll give you a sample now. This is at 100% volume, just to give you an idea what to expect. It's quite good. I like the loudspeakers on the Vivo X100 Pro. Onto gaming performance. So the Dimensity 9300 here performs to me in my testing. Now I've reviewed quite a few of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 mobiles, basically exactly the same. What I have noticed is in certain areas of the map, in Genshin Impact, when you get into the later levels and whatnot, you will notice occasionally a few frame dips. The longer you play, the more you might experience those as it does start to throttle, as I showed you with that 3D Mark result. The Firestrike Extreme showed that after about 7 minutes into it, it throttled down the performance. You do see that in the game a little bit. It takes a bit longer, not quite as quick as the 3D Mark test, because that's putting a lot more stress on the GPU. Here it's going to take about an hour of gaming before you notice a little bit of a drop in the performance. And I'm seeing exactly the same with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 if it is passively cooled. Actively cooled is a different story, but this is a passively cooled mobile like the others I've tested out, and the performance really is exactly the same there. So very good gaming performance. You don't notice it like the 3D Mark Extreme Stress Test until you play for about an hour with a game like Genshin Impact. This is on the absolute top settings, so the highest at 60 frames per second. Over to cameras now with the Vivo X100 Pro. So this is the disappointing thing, is the 32 megapixel camera here does not shoot 4K, and I think for a flagship it really should have that 4K footage. Now the audio bitrate, that is 256 kilobits per second, and the audio is not too bad. I find it to be alright. And you can see we've got electronic image stabilization at least. Now they do have what is called their steady face mode, which I'll show you now too as well. So steady face does have more of a crop to it, and you can see the electronic image stabilization is a little bit more aggressive here as I move about. So I'll just go into the sun, take a look at that quality. I don't think it's bad for 1080p, but I would really love them to add 4K support to this front-facing 32 megapixel camera. So this is 4K 30 frames per second. With our main camera you can also shoot 8K. I'll give you a sample of that shortly. 4K 60. So here I'm using just the 1x, and this is the ultra wide now that I can go over to. It's got electronic image stabilization. The main camera and our periscopic are using optical. This is now 2x. That's digital. And then 4.3. This is our periscopic camera, again with that optical image stabilization. Now you're going to hear a little bit of wind noise. That's because it's a bit blowy at the moment, quite windy. I'll apply a little bit more zoom. That is now 7.1 times zoom there, so you can zoom in a little bit. I'll take it up to 10 now with our camera, with that bow, but the quality has degraded a little bit because there's a bit of digital zoom there. And all three of those rear cameras are 50 megapixels. So this is the main camera again, just jogging. You can see that the stabilization, I think, is reasonably good here, considering how much I'm moving. Finally, for our video samples, this is 8K footage, so we have that resolution that does allow us to crop in quite a bit. In fact, double if you're going to still be keeping it at 4K, which is what I like. It is using electronic image stabilization. It's 30 frames per second. It does use up a lot more storage, of course. And overall, I think the 8K quality, for me, looks better than the 4K, which I find a little soft at times. Low light video, I found the stabilization to be excellent, the image sharpness to be better than that of the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which was one of my favorites for low light video. However, when you pan around, you will notice that it will drop frames occasionally in low light. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra did end up dropping some frames too in low light, so they all do this, but the lens flare was looking very good, well, the lack of it, I should say, thanks to that Zeiss T-Star coating. In our still samples, this is a selfie, and the stitching is good. When you crop in a little bit, now you can see there's a tiny bit of noise. The shot of a red hibiscus flower did a really good job. The main sensor, it is a little bit of clipping there, and it is a little bit saturated. This is just using their vibrant mode. The 50 megapixel ultra wide takes an excellent shot. There's a lot of details here rendered. Colors look great, and this was using the Zeiss mode with the natural colors. I just wish it was a little bit wider. It's only 15 millimeters. As you see now, compared to the main camera, there's not too much of a difference between them. Yes, of course, the ultra wide you fit in a lot more, 15 millimeter focal length equivalent versus 23 millimeter. Then zooming into that house that looks like it's going to fall off the ledge here. This is first the 4.3 times native optical. This is now 10 times zoom, so applying quite a bit of digital here, but still excellent results thanks to the 50 megapixel sensor. I do like what I'm seeing out of the periscopic 4.3 zoom camera. Even with fast-moving subjects like this dog, for example, I managed to get it just in the shot, although it's not quite centered as perfect as I'd like it. Still, look at this photo. Excellent result here. Look at those details. The details in the rocks, the sand, and then the dog. I think it looks fantastic. So great camera. Back to that main camera again. So the shot looks good, and then I've taken another digital zoom shot using that periscopic camera. This again is at 10 times. So what I like about it is it's quite a flexible camera. Even though it's just a native 4.3 at 10 times, as you can see, it is very usable. Just like the X90 Pro, the low light performance does not disappoint. Very good. I'd rate this as one of the top 3 definitely for low light performance. So in the camera comparison where I compared it against the OnePlus 12 and the Galaxy S23 Ultra, it got the win. It was the best, most consistent when it came to low light performance, capturing the best amount of details, least amount of noise, and overall just a better shot. So if you want to see more samples, do check out that camera comparison, which is up in the channel, and there's a link in this review. Overall, recapping now, I think Vivo's done it again, that they have some outstanding cameras with this particular model here. That Zeiss T-Star coating, great to see. They've continued with that partnership with Zeiss, so it really does reduce those reflections, lens flares, improve the quality of the cameras. So right now, this is one of the best that you can get for low light photography. The main 1-inch sensor takes some absolutely outstanding photos, really good, and at times, some of those photo samples just do not look like they've come from a mobile phone. That's how far we're getting now with the quality that especially that 1-inch type sensor can produce with the optics there from Zeiss. Battery life, very good. And then the screen, great. Fingerprint reader's also working really good there, but I'm seeing some throttling, yes, some big throttling if you push it really hard, the Dimensity 9300. That's one of the downsides. Another one of the downsides, coming back to the cameras, is the ultra wide is 15 millimeters the lens. So it's not as wide as I would hope to have seen. And then the front facing camera, this is only a 1080p for video for you vloggers out there. It really should have 4K support. While the 1080p video is excellent from that front-facing 32 megapixel camera, it really should have the 4K which everyone else is offering there. Apart from that, it's an excellent package, and I do believe that this is going to be going really strong into 2024 up against competition, and it'll be really interesting to see how these cameras stack up against the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So when I have that later on, do look out for a camera comparison between the S24 Ultra and the X100 Ultra, because I believe that it's going to be very close indeed, especially what I'm seeing right now out of this solid performance here from the X100 Pro. So thanks a lot for watching my review. Hope you did like it. Do subscribe for more, and I hope to see you back in the channel with more up and coming flagship phone reviews, budget phones, and a lot of other tech.